Hello everybody. It's fall here in the forest, and the tan oak trees are producing lots of acorns, and so all the animals are feeding on them. And the forest floor here is just carpeted with opened acorns, and the logs on either side of the trail are just full of acorn shells. So let's see who's eating these acorns. So I picked this one up off the ground, and this one shows the crushing action that you get when deer feed upon acorns. And so some of these other ones that are here on the ground probably show the same thing. This one showed it really clearly, that's why I happened to pick this one up. But you can actually see in there, as soon as the camera focuses, you can see marks from the deer's teeth. They crush these things with their molars. And so you see this just, whoops, crushed part here, and the angular indentation in it, and just how the whole thing was crushed. So that was done by a deer. Who else opens acorns? So I picked out a few of those acorns to show you. So these ones I think were all opened by birds. So notice that there's some little round holes in some of these. And here's a mark where a beak impacted the acorn and broke it open. And see here this roundish hole right there. Same thing here. And then, whoops, on the edge of this one also, there's this impact crater almost. So these all look like they were opened by birds. And one of the birds around here that does this is the scrub jay. And, you know, they'll pick them up off the ground and take them up to a perch and do it. So this log is a handy little spot. Squirrels will also do it, and I think some of these were done by squirrels. Okay, I didn't move these, but these were sitting right here. You can see here clearly the edges show the impact mark from a beak. And these were all clustered here like this. This one looks like something happened. The acorn, wasn't much acorn meat in there. But these all were done by a bird as well. So the bird has been grabbing them and bringing them up here to this perch. And this is called an anvil because this is a hard surface. And what the bird can do is just take its acorn and, you know, hold it down with its feet and then pound on it with the beak to open up the acorn. And so when they pound on it with the beak, boom, it splits off part of the shell, and then they can eat the part that's inside, which is this part. This one was left here, and there's no incisor marks on it from a squirrel. These look like beak holes. So this one was partially eaten and then left, and because there's such a bounty of food right now, looks like they didn't have to come back and get it. They might come back later, I'm not going to move it, but those were done by a bird. So I gathered up a few of these. These ones I think were done by the squirrel. And we have several squirrel species here. Most likely this was the gray squirrel, because the gray squirrel is the one I've seen around here. And what they do is they hold it in their hands, sort of like a corn of cob, and then they use their teeth to kind of peel pieces of the acorn off. And they just peel enough off so that they can get to the part that's inside, and they eat the acorn. But the shells come out in these little peel-like things like this. And instead of having, you know, impact marks or holes in them, they're just peels. So this is squirrel work right here. So your gray squirrel ate these acorns. So here's an acorn I found that the squirrel ate part of and didn't finish eating for some reason and left it here. I found it over on the ground, and this is all parts of the same acorn nut. But you can see the incisor marks from the squirrel on it here. And they're just little paired marks where its teeth dug into this acorn meat. But for some reason, maybe this was attacked by fungus or something, and maybe it just didn't taste really good. The squirrel didn't eat this one. But you can definitely see the paired incisor marks here. So that's how you can tell the rodents from the other creatures, of course, is the paired incisor marks. Because your deer aren't going to have that because they don't have incisors. But occasionally there are going to be acorns that, for whatever reason, are no good, and they don't eat them. This one was opened, but You can see the nut meat in there looks like had some kind of fungus or something attack it, so it didn't look like it was very edible, and so they left that too. They did only enough work to open it up and determine that the nut was no good, and they dropped it and moved on to another one. So sometimes the fruit just isn't there, or the nut just isn't there, or it just isn't ripe enough, or just doesn't taste good, so they'll drop it and grab another. They're kind of picky that way. Can you hear that bird? That's the acorn woodpecker. And their strategy this time of year is to get the acorns, and they take them to a tree, usually one that's got some rod in it, and they'll make a hole, and into that hole they'll deposit an acorn. Those are called granaries, and they're the storage trees of the acorn woodpeckers. And I think that tree way up there is one. You can see the dead top of the tree, and that's the kind of wood that they'll use. And into each hole, they make the hole exactly the right size, and they place one acorn. And they store them for the winter. The acorn provides a lot of fats and proteins in a small little package, and they start falling off the trees right now just in mass quantities. It's fall, and this is the food. Towards the end of summer, the foods that the deer eat tend to become dried out, and they've put all their energy into flowering and producing their fruits over the summer, so they don't have as many nutrients in them. So the deer get kind of skinny this time of year. But once these acorns start falling, the deer start feeding upon these, and it helps them fatten up for winter. The same is true of the black bears. This is one of their very important food sources in the fall, as well as squirrels and mice and birds. And this stump is covered with open acorns that have been put up here. This is probably the gray squirrel. I used to have a trail camera right over here, and I would watch him come up here, and the squirrel would just sit on this stump and bring acorns back, open them up, eat them, and then go back for another one. And the squirrel has several stumps and logs around here that it can use for that purpose. There's logs all over. And all these trees are tan oaks, so underneath all these trees there's just a bounty of acorns right now, and that's a very important food source for our wildlife. So if you do see acorns on the ground, just leave them. Humans can eat these, but we have to treat them before we can eat them because they're full of tannic acid, and tannic acid is bitter. You can take the acorns and boil them or leach them to get that stuff out, but it's best to leave them for the wildlife. They love these things. And there's so many acorns, and these will last a while. You'll be able to find acorns on the forest floor pretty much throughout the winter, and squirrels bury them, so they store them for later use. The deer eat them right away. Here's another one that was eaten by a deer. You can see the molar marks on it. But most animals eat them right away. Some of them store them for later, and that's important to help them get through the winter. So there you are, acorns and their importance to wildlife.